Welcome to the 11th episode of Under the Hood. So today, this episode is we are going to talk about AI or AI-related feature. Today with me, I have Monica. Hi, Monica.
Hi,
Welcome.
Vincent.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how do you work with AI and what type of feature are you working with in your team?
Yes, so I'm a senior software engineer working in Connected Experiences team, which is part of AI Experiences workload here. And I have been in Microsoft since 2016, and I have been focusing on various areas, but mostly on connected experiences for integrating Business Central with Microsoft 365, like Teams, Outlook, or with Power Platform. Mm-hmm. And my introduction to Copilot space is very recent, where we got an interest and need for integrating AI into Business Central in a natural experience so that users can become more productive easily without even thinking of how to write prompts and how to talk to Copilot. And that's where we started thinking of these experiences, and that's how I was introduced to Copilot.
So it's fair to say a lot of the work and the features you are working on are very close to the user and the user experience, right?
Definitely. A lot of the features are about in the client experience in Business Central, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about the summarizing with Copilot, because that's one of the features you worked on recently. So can you briefly describe, for those who haven't seen it, can you briefly describe what this feature does and what it is?
Yeah? Oh, definitely. So summarizing with Copilot highlights what's most important and urgent for the user on almost every Business Central page. Mm-hmm. So it's just one click which can produce very role-tailored and concise text for the user to help user make decisions faster using Copilot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so and how where is summary shown in the page?
Yes, exactly. So initially we started with focusing on certain pages like heavy data pages like customers and sales orders or items, which requires very fast decision-making abilities as well. But then eventually we created a platform-wide capability. So summarization with Copilot is available on any Business Central single entity pages like card, documents, or list plus.
So customer pages.
Customer, sales orders, any single entity pages. And not only that, it's also available with custom pages. So if partners have created some customer card pages or customer document pages,
that will be there as
that will work without any coding.
Where is it shown on the page?
So it is shown on a new area, what we call a summary fact box. Okay. So it will be shown in the fact boxes pane.
On the side, in the
on the and the side right on the top. So
okay.
It's very visible on the page, yes.
So let's go under the hood. Tell us a little bit about, that's the title of this podcast. So let's tell us a little bit about how that was built. How do we produce that summary?
Yes. I think summarization was built in a way that it does more than just summarizing what you see on the UI. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to build something that can also produce insights out of the data that is available for an entity. So what do you mean by insights? Let's start with that, right? So it's pretty much data points that are currently useful given what is the user's role or the task. Mm-hmm. So the way we build summarization, it's pretty much a 3-step process. We collect data for the entity you're trying to summarize with.
But it's not only what's on the page.
Exactly. It's not only what's on the page. It's the related entities. It's the statistics pages that are related to the current entity. It's the facts from the fact boxes and so on. Mm-hmm. So wherever we could find aggregated data, we collect all that data and put it in a structured format and then send it to LLM to find insights out of that data. And as I said, insights are basically data points that are important for the user at that point of moment, right? And we also ask AI to make scoring for these insights. So based on the certain guiding questions or based on the data context that we have given. And not only that, we also make Copilot think about the user's context. So what's the user's role? And given all this context, AI comes up with a decision engine where it comes up with a list of insights that are most important. And then we summarize those. And that's just not summarize.
So you have a prompt that where you actually, so you gather all this data.
Yes.
And you have a prompt, just so I understand, so you have a prompt that where you're actually asking the LLM what's, try to rank this insight, which one are the most relevant for that particular user.
Exactly.
You give some context.
Exactly.
About
and that's
who
the
the
first
user
prompt.
is, where you are. That's the first prompt?
Yes,
Okay.
we call it Find Insights prompt, followed by, and then it produces a list of insights and scores them based on relevance and importance and urgency and other different heuristics. And then we take the output of that prompt and send it in the second prompt, what we call as Summarize prompt, which pretty much looks into score and only selects the top bullet points that we want to show, and then does the markdown for it in the way that we also make sure that prompt always refers back to the original data for grounding, so user knows where the data is coming from.
So how many prompts do you have all for generating It's basically a pipeline of prompts, right?
It is a pipeline of prompts. I just did a major category of 2, but like the first prompt in itself, we do run it in parallel for each data source. So we categorize data sources into 3 for now: the fields from the current page, the related pages, and fact boxes. And these run in parallel because we also want it to be performant. So in a way that you can say it's a pipeline of different prompts. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting because many people, are familiar with chat experience, your Copilot chat or ChatGPT, and you can easily, think of an AI feature as you ask a question and you get an answer, which is basically one prompt and one reply. But as you described with that example, there's a lot of features in our product where you have to use multiple prompts.
Yeah, almost every platform-wide capability feature that we have, chat, autofill, summarize, analysis, assist, all of these are definitely multi-prompt.
Yeah. You use, I don't know, I think, for example, the autofill feature has 5 or 6 prompts. So
definitely,
like
yes.
Yeah, interesting. So how does Copilot know which related entities or statistic it should be using? Is that a Copilot thing, or is that just normal code, or how do we gather that data?
It's a mixture of both. We definitely leverage existing business central structures and metadata. So, for example, when we select the data, we come up with the statistics. We come up with the pages as related pages definitions, in the way that actions on the current page that lead to other pages are in a way related pages. But then we don't send the data from all of those pages because it could be a lot of data. So we filter out only the pages that are named statistics, because that's where the aggregated data exist, and that's very good for summarization, that we realized over multiple efforts and prompt engineering and all that. And that's how we come up with this. If an action points to a page, and if the page has statistics in it, then we take that data into account and send it to LLM.
Okay, so we made that decision at some stage. We kind of say, okay, this is where there's an assumption that statistics pages contain relevant data.
Exactly.
Good for summarization.
So that's one of the assumptions.
Potentially, we could have chosen some other data. So
yes, exactly.
There's some decision to make in what you.
Exactly, and we came up with this decision over multiple attempts, right? So we started with sending pretty much all the ledger entries and all, and we soon realized it's not very performant because it has to process a lot of data. So we want to send already some aggregated data. So that's one way. We are also sending, for example, some related data from the fact boxes, which is another way of aggregated data in Business Central already. So we're definitely leveraging Business Central metadata structure that existed already. So that was one approach. And then beyond that, we asked Copilot to also figure out what is related for depending on the user's role. So Copilot also does some more filtering after we send the data. So it's a mix of both code, in the sense that before sending it to LLM, we figure out from the code point of view what could be sent, and then Copilot on top of it decides what could be filtered even more.
So we're trying to be a little bit smart about it and kind of pick some data and then kind of use Copilot to refine it. I remember, I remember in the very early days of this feature, when we started talking about doing a summarization, you did an experiment. I think probably the very first experiment on summarization, where you tell us a little bit about it. I think there was something about you send all the data on the page. And
so we started with as simple as just sending the fields that you see on the page, and then summarizing it. It was pretty much a simple prompt, saying this is the data, summarize it. But then over the time, we realized the true value lies in preventing users from clicking multiple tabs, and then getting faster data so that they can make faster decision making. And that was the purpose. So soon then we started with sending more and more data, right? And then one approach we took is all the fields that could have been related by table relationships. That could have been one approach of defining related data, right? And we tried with that experiment, and soon we came up with a bunch of entities that could be related to, for example, sales order, and we came up pretty much with entire database in a way, because how deep do you want to go in terms of table relations and so on. So we did a lot of experiments there, and that's how we came up with multiple iterations and came up with the approach that we have taken now, which is to use wherever we have the aggregated data in Business Central.
But that's interesting, because just summarizing what's on the page is not really relevant, because you can just look at the page.
Exactly.
So the idea, as you mentioned, as I understand it, is we look at related things, and without having, so that can prevent the users from, or help the users, and
exactly.
So it doesn't have to look, because usually that's what you do when you want to get some insights, some say a customer or a sales order, you go and click around and try to gather the data. So we kind of say that Copilot does that for you.
Exactly. That is the idea, right? So the way I see summarization, Vincent, is basically there are two main tracks that we can keep working on for improving summarization overall, and that's how we started with this. The data context, which is what kind of data to send, which is what we are talking about, but there's another parallel context, which is data about the user. So what we intend to do is, right now we are sending role, but eventually we intend to also make sure that we understand what was the intent of the user to open this particular page. And the more context we have about the user, the more context we have about the entity for which we are summarizing, the better the summaries would be.
So how do you, that's interesting, because so that's what's basically maybe what's coming with this feature, right? So how do you, so we're trying to guess or determine what the user intent is. So how do we do that? Is that where, for example, where you navigate from, or what are
exactly? So there are multiple ways to determine the user intent. The definitely role is one of them. So we already know, for example, a business manager is usually interested in business KPIs, or a warehouse manager would be interested in inventory details, or sales order would be interested in how his customer doing with the sales, so on, right? So role definitely helps. But there is other ways to define what could be the intent of the user on this page. For example, the most frequently used pages, or what was the navigation pattern that user followed to reach to this entity. So that could kind of indicate what was the intent of the user. So we definitely want to explore those parts as well.
That sounds exciting. So that's the next generation of summary, right?
Yes, definitely. We also want to stabilize more and more with the current version, and then in future we do have plans of increasing both the tracks, the user context track, but also the data context. So we'll have more sources of data. Right now, all the sources that I mentioned are coming from the Business Central database itself, but we could easily think of integrating with external data, be it data from LinkedIn or any other external sources.
Potentially point on your OneDrive or something and have spreadsheets,
for example.
Another thing we could, right?
Definitely.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So how's can you see telemetry? We monitor the usage of that feature, right?
Yeah.
What can you see there? Is that a good usage?
So there's definitely very good early adoption. We are seeing that. There's a little bit of lesser percentage of people clicking show more, which could indicate that already the data points that they are seeing might be enough for them to help make their task perform better.
Can you tell us a little bit what the show more is?
Yes, so as we mentioned that you see the summary in the summary fact box, right? And right there you only see like 2 or 3 bullet points of summary text, which is the highest score insights that Copilot came up with, put into natural language. And then you get to see like most 3 important things that you need to know about this entity. But if you're curious and if you want to know more about them, then you can click a show more button in the fact box, and then it will open the chat experience, which will give you more insights, so more number of bullet points. And of course, the reason that it shows up in the chat experience is then you can talk with the Copilot and know more about the data points, or follow up, ask questions, exactly.
In natural language.
In natural language,
which is pretty
yes.
cool too. So you this is all AI development, right? And so as you mentioned, it's kind of new still for many of us, right? So how was it to develop this AI feature? Did you do a lot of prompt engineering, for example?
Definitely, yes. Prompt engineering, definitely. I think this was also one of my big AI features, and what I learned in the sense with building AI features is that there's definitely a lot of prompt engineering, but there's a lot of architecture surrounded around the prompts. For example, making sure that the data context is structured, making sure that the output is kind of a little bit more deterministic. But since the nature of AI is non-deterministic in itself, what I learned more is that tests are super important, especially because you change one line of prompt and the response could be completely different, and you would want to do it in multiple iterations over your development cycle of the feature. So tests are definitely way more.
Let's talk a little bit about tests, because especially for a feature like summary, everybody understands the concept of test. You have an input and you have an expected output. And in the old days, it was pretty simple. Like you enter a number and you expect another number there or something like that, right? When we're talking about summary and AI, we do a lot of things with natural language. Like summary is a good example of an AI feature leveraging natural language. It's a little harder to determine what's right or wrong, because you get some text in natural language, right? And it can be phrased in many ways. But so how do you test that? Or you know that this is actually a good summary, a bad summary, or an accurate summary? So tell us a little bit about how you test it.
It's a very interesting question, and it was also one of the very big challenges for us to determine what is a good summary or what is not a good summary. So when it comes to testing AI features, there are different tests that you have to keep in mind. There's definitely the harm test, making sure that the response never contains any harmful content. And that is kind of a bit more in your control. You have a set list of harms, and now it's even available in Azure AI Foundry. So you could test your content against those harms and make sure.
Just to be clear, we actually use an LLM to do that.
Yes, all the tests that we use.
Basically, you put your thing through the LLM, you get an answer.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And then you take that answer and you have another prompt.
Yes.
That, for example, if you want to test for harms, that is crafted for that particular purpose of testing harm, where you basically ask something like, I'm oversimplifying, but it's something like, is there anything with violence in that content?
Yes, and that is pretty much
it. And then the LLM will tell you yes or no.
Yes, that's pretty much it, right? We have something called what we call evaluate statement prompt, and this could be a statement, for example, right, where we say, hey, this is the data, can you evaluate whether the statement is true or not? Does it have a harm? Definitely one of the new things about testing with AI features is that you use AI to test AI features. So that's good that you brought it up. So there's the harm test, right, where you have a set of defined harms and you want to test against those. Then there is the accuracy test, which is making sure that AI is not hallucinating. It's grounded. and the data that you provided as the input.
So what's the principle of it?
So pretty much the principle is we check. So grounding can be applied in multiple ways. It could be applied definitely already at the code level. It could be applied already at the data input level. You could filter out the data that you believe is probably, for example, for summarization, we filtered out default values or something like that. So there's some grounding right there. In the prompt engineering, you can do some grounding, explicitly saying to make sure that the data is always that the output is always grounded in the data. We also use the function calling in the sense that the insights output structure is deterministic. So we always tell that for each insight, please refer back to one of the source ID from the data that we sent. So that could be another approach for grounding. But testing is also another way for making sure grounding is there. And that could be done basically asking LLM again. Given this is the output summary, given this is the data, can you please confirm that the output is always from the data?
I contain the data that comes from the output. So
Yes.
you just basically ask the LLM, make sure
Exactly.
that,
So in
that's
this case,
grounded.
the evaluate statement is, can you please make sure that the output is coming from the data?
That's a very common technique, by the way, that's
Definitely.
used in many AI features where you actually
Exactly.
kind of check that the result is consistent with what you expect. And
Yes. And for summarization, to answer your question about how do you measure a good summary, what we also have something what we call functional test. And this is like any software development feature, you would do some functional test, but here we also involve LLM. So, and this is a bit tricky, right? So here we say, given a role, for example, warehouse manager, and given an item data, for example, that has 0 inventory, we would expect that this should be one of the insights that should be written in the final summary. And this is the functional test that we did. So we came up with some tremendous large test data set containing multiple roles and multiple scenarios with different entities. Some, for example, customer has late payments, or there is a delay in shipping lines, or the item inventory 0. So these are the matters that we would expect to be shown in summary because they are important given on the role for the user, or they might be urgent given on the deadline, and so on. And
so
then,
for example, we have test data where we have customers where late payment.
for example,
And then we expect that to show up in the summary.
Yes.
So we have another prompt that says, hey, look at the summary. Does it say something about late
exactly
payments, right?
exactly
Yeah,
and that's the way we decided. And then we have multiple other metrics, right? So one of them is certain insight is there or not, but we have defined plenty of other metrics to decide how good a summary can be. For example, it needs to be certain in brief words. It cannot be too long or cannot be too short, things like that. It needs to be precise in the sense, if you try to, with the same data, if you try to regenerate 5 times, 7
It's about the
times,
form and the style of the summary itself. Right?
form, style, precision, brevity. There are other metrics that we define, and yes, and then that's how we come up with a certain way of scoring whether a summary is good or not. And we want to do this as a repetitive process. So we want to also get feedback from different customers, and then iterate over this whole process of measuring summary and get to our vision of how good a summary
Is that
can.
the thumbs up, the thumbs down, or?
That's one way, definitely. Thumbs up and thumbs down definitely is one way. But in general, the feedback, right, from partners and understanding from telemetry, the patterns. So we want
Please, if you're using that feature, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Please do, yes.
Because that's useful for us, and we can
Definitely.
that can help Monica improve the summary.
definitely, yes.
Yeah. So there's another thing. Actually, we might do another under the hood episode about it. But we're working on doing what we call experimentation. I don't want to tell much about it because that could be subject an entire episode. But it's about basically trying some things out and having some metrics to verify, whether it's a good, which could be something like try it with a different prompt and see if it gives better results. And summary could be a candidate for doing experiments like this. So we would send,
Definitely.
maybe try a prompt on a small population of our users and see if they give up or sometimes give up and
Yes.
see if it's better. But we'll get back to that.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes.
So what was what would you say was the the most challenging thing? You mentioned tests, but did you have any aha experience working with AI and especially doing prompt engineering? Was something that you got surprised about that you didn't think, okay, oh, wow, that's how it works, or I wouldn't think.
I think test definitely was one of them, how important it is, especially like the number of reiterations it takes with prompt engineering. And then there is also the effort for model migrations. You need to keep up to date with the new models. So you want to change, which means you need to have good tests to make sure that your feature is behaving as you would want to behave, even with the newer models and so on. You want to experiment with different kind of models. So that's also, test is definitely.
So which models are we using for that feature?
Yeah, so for summarization, certain prompts were before on 4.0, especially the grounding checks and all, and most of them were 4.0 mini.
Okay.
And now we have migrated all of them to 4.1 mini.
Okay. So why mini? So for, if you don't know, the models called mini are actually small language model. So why
smaller than
yeah,
the
smaller,
big ones.
they're still quite
because
big.
there could be even smaller SLMs.
So these are smaller, and you're right to correct me about it, because you still can't really run them on regular hardware.
No.
So they're still relatively large.
Yes.
But so why using these small language models, and why not using the big models?
It depends on the need of the feature, right? Definitely. For summarization specifically, we believe that 4.1 mini is enough. It's also better performant. So we want the summary to be right there in a couple of seconds.
So it's faster.
Yeah.
So when you ask, so basically, large language model, they do more work in a sense.
Yeah.
So if you send them the same prompt, it will take longer time for them to answer. Right?
Yeah, and exactly. And there's also a whole idea about trying it out with different models, because even for summarization, as I said, there's multiple prompts involved. Some of the prompts, for example, the scoring part could be probably better done with other models than 4.1 mini, because they might have better reasoning capabilities. And we are still figuring out, right, to maybe try out these newer models like O1 and so on. So there's no right answer in a way, but you just select models depending on the need of the feature.
So how can you advise our partners who are trying to develop AI features on how should they pick their model? Why should they experiment like you do, or what's the
Definitely
process?
read
What's
about
the rule of thumb?
them, understand the differences between each of them, and then start with the one that meets the closest with your need of the feature. And then yes, still, even if you believe this is the right model, do try it with other models. And that's why I have a good set of tests, so you could easily switch between models and try your feature. So that's the way we would do it, and that's the way we would recommend partners to do it as well.
Another advantage of small language model is that they're also cheaper, right?
Definitely, yes. But you need to maintain them yourself. So there's also a little bit of using the existing models versus having your own models. So
yeah,
there's trade-offs.
Yeah. All right.
Definitely.
All right. Okay. Anything you wanna say to our partners or developers who want to leverage the summary? What can they do? Is that extensible, for example, or
So
you mentioned earlier that even a custom page would have a summary.
Exactly.
So what can they do to make sure that this feature is actually shines for their solution as well?
Definitely. As I said, summarization works out of the box with custom entities. Right now, it is not directly extensible from AL in the sense that they cannot provide, for example, more data sources, or they cannot override the text that they see in the summary in one way or another yet. But we are working on it. It is one of the top feedback that we also got from partners, that they want to have control over some control over summary in general. Having said that, Developers still have some ways of making sure that summarization is performing better, and that's through the metadata. They can define their custom entities, or they can override the existing entities with better metadata. If they want to include more data sources, they could add more fact boxes to the existing entity, or have actions that points to even more statistics pages. So that's one way. Tooltips, captions, and any other descriptions and about text is one thing that we have been always asking AL developers to make sure that they are better and descriptive, and so because these are the things that help Copilot understand the context about the entity. So the more we will improve these together, the more better AI experiences.
So yeah, so if it's just as a minimum, put good tooltips on the pages,
Exactly.
then you'll get probably a better summary, because that helps the LLM understand what what the
Exactly.
page is about.
Exactly. So that's that. So that's for partners and developers. For customers, think of AI as your Copilot. There's a reason we call it Copilot, because it is one of them, right? So let AI do the heavy work, the tedious, repetitive work, while you make the actual decision-making kind of work. So that's how I see AI. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Monica. Well, that was a little bit of insight on how we built, one of the many AI features in Business Central, and I think it was really, it was great to hear about it, because it seems relatively simple. It's just a summary of the page, but there's actually, a lot more to it. So thank you
Definitely.
for sharing this
Vincent.
time.
It's nice. Thank you.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.